Hey, good morning. I'd like to call the Northampton County General Purpose Authority meeting for April 2nd to order. Mark, would you please call roll?
Sure. Mr. Anthony?
Here.
Mr. Derdinger?
Here.
Mr. Pintbone?
Here.
Mr. Kraft is excused. Ms. Vargo Hefner?
Here.
Mr. Donchez?
Here.
Ms. Baum?
Here.
Thank you, Mark. Approval of minutes. Everybody have a opportunity to review the minutes?
Indeed. Make that motion.
Thank you, Charles. I need a second, please. Thank you, Frank. Any questions on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Good morning. I'll start with the balance sheet, which is pretty much consistent here, and we could see that. Let me find it. Yeah, we have total cash and cash equivalents of $1,472,000 and change, and then our receivables are $439,000. And when you kind of substitute it through, our fund balance right now is at $1,475,314.87 in the general ledger fund. The balance, the income statement is still confusing to read and a work in progress. We did have a good meeting with Duran's team this week, and we put together a copy of our draft budget, which we're going to be implementing. Mark, I don't know if we send this out to everybody yet or not.
It's in the meeting packet for discussion later on.
Okay. So one of the things that the budget will help accomplish for us, not only from a budget standpoint, but it is a good consistent breakout of our income statement, which will be able to be a lot easier to follow. So we're working. When you look at the income statement on the general fund, it's still kind of not all the items are there, to be honest with you. So that's still a work in progress, and we're trying to resolve that through. There hasn't been really much activity through the first couple of months anyway. I don't know, Mark, if you have any other details on it, but it's pretty straightforward. Other than the goal, and we will hope to implement it by next month, is really the income statement should just reflect what the audit looks like. We should be able to break it out and really look how the audit is shown at the end of the year, and we're working on getting that implemented for us on the general fund balance. The capital project balance sheet just shows a consistent number there, where we show a total assets of about $34,000 and payables, and it's kind of a break even. And the same goes actually cash on hand. You'll see it through, and it's pretty much total fund balance for the capital projects is $2,619,642.02. So the goal will be, again, by next month with finishing out our budget and just kind of fine-tuning this new combination of our accounting with the County of Northampton, to just have a little bit more consistent presentation here that everybody should be able to read, because it is still a work in progress, and it's not the easiest to read.
Yeah, I do appreciate that. It's just the consistency of it, and just ease of reading it. So I do appreciate that.
Any questions on it?
Thank you, Ron. I need a motion to accept the Treasurer's report, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. Any questions on that motion to approve the Treasurer's report? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. 3.2, invoices for payment.
Attached in your meeting packet is a spreadsheet of all the invoices. We have a total of $5,472.64 for King Spry. Riley and Company, $5,666.02. And PMA, which is our claims handling for the P3 insurance, our second installment is due. That's $3,862. And then the first quarter of administrative fees for the DCED as your administrator is $14,026.52 for a total of $29,027.18. And all of the supporting invoices are attached.
And I also see King Spry breaks out P3 from general legal services. All right, is that correct?
We have all of our contract, any professional services will break out P3 versus general.
So I just so I don't have to refer back, if, for the legal fees for P3, does that fall under the capital projects?
Yes, that would come through
On the capital projects?
capital projects. Now,
Statements.
I don't believe any of this would hit the income statements that were presented to you, because basically you're approving them. Once you approve them, then they'll get accrued and paid, and then it would hit the income statement.
Okay. You okay with that, Ron?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on invoices to be paid? I need a motion to accept, please.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you,
Second.
Ron. Thank you, Lori. Any questions on that motion to pay the invoices? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. And then you also have something in here, just informational only, invoices
Yes,
year to
it's
date?
just a summary of all
Sure.
the invoices that have been paid to date.
Okay, and there's no action needed on that?
No.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Claim under PMA, claims handling P3, what does that mean?
We have a claims handler that handles any claims on the bridges. And so if there was my understanding is if there was a claim that somebody got injured on a bridge, they would handle and dispose of
So
claims
address
there.
those specific issues.
Right.
And
Okay,
this is
that's
something
all.
we have an RFP out for.
We are putting it together. Hopefully by next month, that'll be out on the street.
I'm assuming they're a third-party administrator, right?
Mhm.
You have a
Yeah.
plan design, then they just manage the claims.
Correct.
And the RFP will be under new business, I see, so. Any other questions on the invoices paid to date? All right, thank you. Public comment? There is no public comment.
Well, I've one suggestion for the agenda.
Sure.
Our auditor is here. Would we be able to move up the audit presentation before some of the old business? Because I think it'll...
You don't think she'd be excited about hearing about P3? It's the only thing that wakes me up in the morning
I don't
to
want
come
to
to
deny,
these meetings.
I don't want to deny Greg that opportunity. All right, yes, I'm fine with, if everyone else is okay with it, I'm fine with that, please.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Debbie Borger. I'm here from Riley and Company, as you know. I'm the auditor. You folks should all have copies of the draft financial statements that were distributed, I believe,
7.1 in your meeting packets.
which unfortunately was lower in the pile, I guess, right?
But it's the thickest one.
Easy to find.
Yeah. I don't know, is that more valuable then? The more paper we produce, is that more valuable?
All right.
Well, and as you can appreciate with all the paper, the package that you have there consists of all the required communications relating to the audit. The first 15 or so pages of your packet include 3 letters that must be issued either by the auditor or signed by the client in relation to an audit. The 2 letters that we are responsible for are in relation to internal control and communicating various items to the board. They're pretty much all boilerplate. The letter for internal control identified one issue in relation to segregation of duties during 2018. However, since your accounting has now transferred over to the county, there's a much more defined segregation of duties there. So while we needed to document that in our report, the issue really has gone away for 2019. So unless somebody has questions on those letters, I'm not really intending to go over them.
Okay.
But I will go to the financial statements now. They're like, I guess, 15 pages back in your packet. I'm not sure if you have everything all together or what, but
I believe they start on, it's listed as page 47 of 81 in your packet.
Thanks, Mark.
Check that 51
In there.
of 81.
Because it's in
All right. The first page is the cover page, obviously, and then the index, and then the third page of that section is the start of the stuff that you guys are concerned about as the board. That is our independent auditor's report. And that's really what you pay us to give you. The discussion there is about the financial statements. It identifies management's responsibilities, also identifies the auditor's responsibilities. But the most important paragraph, the one that you're most interested in, is the one that's on the second page called opinions. And that's where we say that we are giving these financial statements as presented an unqualified opinion. And that's the best report that you can get. And that's what you, as the board, want to obtain from the information that you're provided by management. So that's the biggest concern issue with that report. Then to the next, let's see, like 2 pages back is the government-wide statement of net position.
That'd be 51.
The statement of net position is really your 2 funds that are in the authority, the general fund and the capital projects fund, which you were discussing earlier, and they're combined there, and also reflects the capitalization of the reporting of capital assets, which your capital assets are your bridges and there's a deposit on capital assets that's presented here. That's the difference. This financial statement is different from what you guys are going to see on a monthly basis, I presume. I think you're going to just see fund statements. So at the end of the year, you'll see this government-wide statement of net assets, and it is reported more on a method or a basis that's comparable to a business, because it's full accrual and records all assets and liabilities of the organization, which is a little different than what your funds will show. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. But the major items on the statement are, the first line is your GPA operating money. That's what's used to fund operations. The restricted cash is the loan fund money. Then there's a deposit on capital assets here that's recorded. And what that is to you guys is, it's the excess of payments that were made to the contractor over and above the calculated costs that the contractor would have incurred. And that's calculated based on milestones and the percentage of completion at that point. Then the next section is the notes receivable. Some of those notes receivable that the authority has had are GPA general money, the first line, the $90,000, and then the other loans are restricted, and those are from the CIPP loan funds. Next section is your capital assets, basically the results of the P3 project. And you'll see that there's about $7 million in the cost of bridges that have been substantially completed by the end of 2018. In the liabilities section, there's a few accounts payable that were outstanding at the end of the year, and then the major one is due to the county, the loan fund monies. So when you look at the net equity in the organization, that's your net position. You'll see that there's about $10 million there. 8.1 plus is in your capital assets. Anybody have a question or anything on that statement?
On that page. No.
The next page is statement of activities. This statement basically reports to you where the expenditures of the organization were and where the revenues came from. It's a little bit different presentation than you'd be used to because it starts with expenses. Most financial statements or income statements start with revenues. But your expenses are shown first, and then under the program revenues, it identifies to you the type of revenues that they were. Fees are your financing fees. Operating grants and contributions is the IFIP grant. And then the capital grants and contributions are the P3 funding. So, and at the bottom line here, you have a $5 million profit, but what this means to you is that the rest of the costs there were capitalized in the capital projects. The next page starts the financial statements that would be more familiar to you. I'm not sure that they're in the same format, but they would look more familiar. Because these are their fund statements, and those are going to be what you would probably be seeing on a monthly basis. So what you have here is your general fund, capital projects fund, and then a total. Those amounts are very consistent with what I identified in my discussion about the statement of net position. And really, it presents everything except the capital assets on here. Does anybody have any questions? Next page is a reconciliation between the statement of net position and the fund balance sheet, which, as I told you, it's all the reconciliation, all the reconciling items relate to capital assets. The next page is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances for the funds.
I could add, Deborah, this is the page really that will be a reflection of our monthly income statement. When you look at it, it's pretty consistent. And when you see how our budget's being outlined, most of these items, they'll all be kind of recorded monthly. So going forward, how this looks is the reports that we're trying to strive to have for us to understand.
And you would want to, your goal would be that the numbers that you see in the financial statements at the end of the year are the same numbers that you're seeing in your December 31st report. And there certainly is that potential. So what you'll see on here is you see the general fund operations, which is your normal GPA operations, financing, grants, etc., and then the capital projects fund. And you can see where the monies were expended for the capital project.
So, I mean, it's if you look at the change in fund balances, you see for the year, the general fund, we lost $195,264, and the capital project fund was pretty much a break even at a loss of $19,000.
The next page, again, this is the reconciliation between the fund statement and the statement of activities that we went over before. And as we already noted, it's always, again, the capital asset transactions that are the reconciliation. The remaining pages in the in the financial statements section is the notes to the financial statements. That from page 1 to like page 7 is the policies, procedures for the preparation of the financial statements. They didn't really change from the prior year, and there's not really anything unusual going on here that's disclosed in there. If you skip forward to page 9 of the notes, this gives you a little more detail on the notes receivable, the financings that the GPA holds, which are really community type organizations that borrow money from the GPA.
Mhm.
And you can see that the unrestricted, which are the regular GPA operating notes, and then you see the restricted notes, which are from the CIPP fund. On the next page, there's a summary of the notes and what transactions were during 2018, and then there's also a summary of the capital assets, which I noticed that there's no ending balances shown there, so that's going to be corrected to agree to your statement of net position. But other than the ending balances, the rest of the transactions during 2018 are reflected on that note. On page 11 of the notes, there's the due to the county, the 1.25 million, and part of that note reflects that the county requested that the remaining monies back, and that in January those were paid back to the county. Actually, I think it was February, but the authority approved to pay it back in January. On the next page, there's note 9, the dispute at legal fees. It's a disclosure of the balance that is currently in dispute. Because of the amount of it, it had to be disclosed.
Page 12 or 69 of 80.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, note 9.
So just a question on this. So it had to be noted, did it run through the financial statements as if?
No,
So what does it look like? It's how is it booked currently?
it's not currently billed.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah,
So it's
it's
just
not. It's just
noted.
noted.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Were there any other questions, since I was kind of running through these pretty quickly? On the next page is the note that relates to the P3 project. The disclosures here are pretty consistent with the note and the financial statements for last year. We added a couple of items. One was a disclosure of the estimated utility relocation costs, because that is, of course, going to be an additional cost in relation to the project that isn't currently recorded anywhere.
Is that 300,000?
Yes.
Okay.
There were some costs incurred in 2018 that are disclosed in the P&L, but this is in addition. And then the rest of the note discusses the situation with the default, and that there is that there's ongoing negotiations to work on that situation, and also the proposed changes to the contract. And if the board or management feels that there is something else important that should be added to this note or any of the notes, that's certainly your prerogative. So I just would need to know what it is that you want to put in. On the next page, discusses the additional contracts relating to the P3. The first one is the third-party engineer, and also that this paragraph includes the proposed changes to their contract. The last page of the notes is on the conduit debt obligations, and this identifies for you the outstanding financings that are in the community at this point in time. And as part of the year-end work, we contact, and actually the DCD staff did a great job of it this year. They contacted all the people that owed money and got the information. So as you can see, it's almost $1 billion in outstanding loans there that the community is benefiting from.
Crazy.
Any questions on the financial statements? That's really the meat of what I'm here to talk to you guys about. The remaining papers in there are the same information that's in the financial statements, just in other formats. Like probably the next page that you guys would see is this public notice. Public notice is required to be in a newspaper of general circulation in the community where the authority is. So once the audit is complete and approved, that will be published in the local paper.
Which I'm curious, Easton, Allentown, what do you consider local?
I think it's probably Easton, but these guys take care of it.
In advertising in the Express Times, they're cheaper than the Morning Call.
They're cost effective.
Yes.
There you go. Well, and you're Northampton County. You're not Lehigh.
I see.
Then the other item that you also received is a copy of the DCED report that gets filed with DCED every year.
This
Again,
was the extra handout on top of your packet.
DCED has changed their system to now being computerized. Finally, they came into the 21st century. So, of course, when I was doing it, this is the first one that I did this year, and I was having all kinds of problems. So it's just a little bit delayed. But the information that's here is, again, another version of what you see in your financial statements. It's just what they have to have. And then we file along with this, they get a copy of the audit. So those are the little filing requirements for the organization. Does anybody have any questions? Well,
The only thing, Paul, I would note again is, as Deborah mentioned earlier, you are going to be issuing an unqualified opinion, which is the best opinion you could get for an audit. So that's important to note.
I would like to thank the DCD staff and the county fiscal staff. They did a great job of keeping the information rolling to me to get this audit done. With all the changes in the organization this year, could have been a nightmare, but they really did a great job. So I appreciate all of their help. And the last thing, I guess, is we'll be looking to the board to accept the financial statements. And I don't anticipate any changes. I'm looking for the attorney letter from Mr. Freund shortly so we can finalize the statements, but I gave him to this time because we need from the auditor's side, we need to have that letter as close as possible to the date of the legal of the report.
So are you looking for the board to take formal action today to accept these financial statements, or would this be something that they would do next month?
I think they would need to do it this month because otherwise we're on a timeline with the county
Okay.
because they need to have these financial statements approved to include them in the county financials.
So the only thing that you see changing in the statements that were presented where you were going to add the outstanding loan balances of our notes receivable?
Oh, It's just in that note where it was actually the capital projects note.
Okay.
The ending balances didn't flow over to that note.
Okay.
But they are disclosed in the
Okay.
statement of net position.
Okay.
Yep. And unless somebody on the board or management wants to make any editorial changes to the notes. And really the one that I was thinking was the P3, you might, if you wanted to add any information to that. And you can certainly approve the financial statements pending those things, because I'm sure it would be in agreement.
Yeah, I'm,
I don't anticipate anything material that's going to be disclosed in my letter other than what we're talking about.
and to that extent, spending as much time with you as I did, I'm very comfortable with the outcome of this, so.
It was my pleasure.
Let the minutes reflect that it was her pleasure that I cooperated.
I'm starting to question where the rest of the opinion's going to come from now.
So we're going to approve the draft. Is there any other action needed after that? Okay.
There would just be the letter that would need to be signed, the representation letter.
Right.
A member of the board, whoever is most comfortable with the financial statements. It could be the treasurer, it could be Ron, it could be any member of the board if you are more comfortable.
Ron's very comfortable signing that.
I am.
There you go. That's great.
All right. So
I'll make the motion pending any additions that we have to accept the report.
all right.
I'll second.
Thank you, Lori. Any questions on that? Okay, seeing no questions, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
you.
Deborah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'll go back to old business. Morning, Greg.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Does everybody have a copy of my report?
Yes.
So I got a short report today. I'll go through some of the things that have changed since our last meeting. We received 2 more final construction plans from Greenman Peterson for review. They're currently in our office. Regarding right-of-way, as of today, 28 out of 30 properties have signed the easement documents, which is good news. And the last 2 we got verbals for, so hopefully by the end of this week and next week at the latest, we'll have all the easements signed and wrapped up. Regarding utilities, I've been in contact, and Mike and Amelia as well, with all the utility companies. They're all in the state of either staking out poles, tree trimming, asking for meetings with Krieger, et cetera. So they're all moving in one fashion or another, and we're still staying in contact with them to make sure they get the poles relocated prior to construction beginning. Regarding construction, Bridge 143 started on February 8th, and their first phase has completed as of Friday. It's a stone masonry arch rehabilitation, and they did work under the stream to install steel arch liners under the masonry arch, and they're installed, they're complete. As of right now, they can't work on the 3rd span until the stream restriction ends on June 16th. They have there's a concrete coffer dam in place, they're working behind that, and they're not allowed to move it until that stream restriction's over. So that one's at a stopping point right now, and we'll be starting in the middle of June. Bridge 63, the advanced detour warning signs went up yesterday. They've already started mobilizing to the site. Pre-bid meeting was held out at the site. The borough and the townships were there, and that bridge will be starting momentarily as well too.
Greg, you just mentioned the pre-con or pre-construction meeting. Was the contractor there?
They were not in attendance.
Is that typical in your experience that the contractor would not be in attendance at a pre-construction meeting that involves 3 different municipalities?
Yeah, not typical. No, that's not typical.
All right. Have you ever attended a pre-con meeting where that didn't take place?
I have not personally.
Okay.
So they're the only 2 bridges under construction right now. The rest of the bridges for 2019, I sent an update on Friday. They're all either waiting for DEP permits, final plans to come in and get signed, or utilities to be moved. So none of them are ready to be started right away, but I imagine in the next few weeks, a bunch of these will be opening up for Krieger to get moving on.
And Bridge 215?
Yeah, 207 and 215 is that one's probably the closest because the stream restrictions lifted on April 2nd. We received final plans last week, and we'll be getting those out today, actually. So that one could be pretty close. It'll come down to probably to utilities moving. But the one thing that we've seen is, at least in some of the other jobs in the county, once construction begins, utility companies are a little more eager to come out to the site when they know there's a lot of action going on. So hopefully that'll spur the utilities to come on out, because they know they're on the hook when the contractor's waiting and saying, we're going to cut down the pole if you don't come move it. So hopefully that'll get the utilities out and moving as well, too. And then lastly, starting in March, we've done weekly conference calls with IWDA, who's Krieger's sub-consultant for construction services, and we're getting weekly updates on what's been going on at the sites. And also, myself mostly, but some of my other guys in my office have been going out to do construction monitoring. So we've been checking out everything we've done. And what we've seen in 143 is everything's been going very well. So, any questions?
Yeah, I always have questions,
Well,
sorry.
go
Because
ahead.
I have an IEP in Bridge Speak, so I really need to
Fire away.
have clarification. So then, for my simplistic understanding, how many are actually done, how many are like men's and men's, and how many are not even started yet?
Yeah, well, I'll talk about, actually, that's a good point. I want to talk about the punch list items as well, too. Yesterday at our call, the bridges from last year that still have outstanding punch list items, that's 4 of them. They were started yesterday, and they're going to be wrapped up by the end of next week.
That's the ones listed under J, construction update?
That's under K, punch list items.
Okay,
So Bridge 227, 189, 191, and 66.
okay.
Most of them were springtime operations, topsoil, seeding, et cetera, that they were waiting to do, so they're going to get started on those now.
Yeah, you said about a week, Greg? I mean,
We'll
let's
say 1 to 2 weeks.
the
Depending on weather.
spring GPA meeting, they should be finished, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right.
Do we know when spring's going to be this year?
For us, it's going to be May.
I think so.
So then a total completed is how many?
So final accepted are 3. There's 4 that are substantially complete, waiting for final acceptance.
I'm sorry, Greg, you said 3?
Yeah, there's 157 from 2017.
157.
Yep.
from
I'll
2000.
start putting that on this list.
Yeah, I'm
of
just-
ones.
Thank you.
Yep.
2017?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
And-
and a nice, simple chart.
Yeah.
I like the IEP and bridge. That's good. Like something
Look,
really
I always push
straightforward.
my
And
kid to
it's
say, tell them about your
almost
accommodations.
finished. That would be really
I need
helpful.
Yeah, I prepared a
accommodations.
chart for a while ago. I'll update it and send it out to you.
that'd be
Yeah,
good.
that would be great.
Sure. I
Yeah.
can do it. And there's 2 under construction.
Okay.
As far as what can be happening, I understand and obviously participate in the status meetings. For status meetings 1 through 28, Krieger has participated in those status meetings, if not driven the conversation as to what's been going on. The GPA members should be aware that they have not participated in the last 2 status meetings. And to that extent, we have been told time and again, and I don't know if you're in receipt of any new information, but over the last month, I think it would be fair to say we haven't gotten questions to, we haven't gotten responses to questions from the status meetings. Have you gotten anything new on any of that?
I have not. That's correct.
Do we know why they haven't been able to attend? Was there an explanation?
These are phone conversations. So, Krieger's a company with at least 3 or 4 people that have in the past attended these meetings, and that is not the case presently. We have an in-face meeting coming up, an in-person meeting coming up that was face-to-face or in-person. In-face came. That is going to be in a week from now, the 12th. Where we're expecting someone from Krieger to attend, and just to keep everyone up to speed, there was a credit letter issued from Krieger. Our response went back now 3.5 weeks ago, and we are still not in receipt of any response as to what our position is or what they are willing or unwilling to do with that letter. So this is now dragging on. They were looking for a lot of changes, as are we, certainly as the milestones are considered. One of the elements that we were talking about in one of the progress meetings is what is prepared to be done, and we are not really in a situation that there are a lot of bridges ready to be built. In the past year, they had a number of the arches already prefabbed and ready to go. How many arches or how many bridges are they ready to go with now?
I mean, last we heard, there's no arches that were prefabbed already
And the
at the last status.
and the time frame on getting an arch.
8 weeks is what they tell us.
So we're effectively 2 months from another bridge being completed. Is the Bridge 63 arch prefabbed?
I'm not exactly sure, but I'm not sure. I was
Okay.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
We were expecting, or at least from the schedule that we were given, just to give everyone a sense of understanding. Bridges 63 and 215 were anticipated to start in March. 63 is yet to be started. They have, did the detour warning signs start going up yet?
Yes, they went up yesterday.
Okay. Nothing with Raisley Hill. An element for which everyone should be aware, the county, as we've said a number of times, is not supposed to be involved in this. We're supposed to be a conduit here for the county to get this project done, and the contractors that we have hired are supposed to be doing this work. In that regard, we wound up last year trying to ask the county to get involved, as they had a lot of information that other people wouldn't have, certainly through the tax records and Mr. Amelie's relationship with the Sheriff's Department, have been able to move forward on several of these things, and Mr. Amelie and his staff, as well as members of Fiscal, have been able to move this forward in a way that last year they were still looking for the finishing on easements, and Mr. Amelie and his group have nailed down all the easements we needed for this year. They are also, as Mr. Kuklinski had pointed out, dealing with utility relocations. That's not something that would otherwise, if you're hiring someone to do work at your house, you're not really getting involved in getting permits or getting outside contractors to come in and do this stuff. Mr. Amelie and Mr. Kuklinski have been working with the utilities as well to try to hasten these things, including the county executive has had several meetings in his office with different stakeholders to try to facilitate getting utilities moved. Again, this is something that would not otherwise be their responsibility, but we really should appreciate that they're getting these things done. And to that extent, we're looking at bridges 54 and 188 were on the plan, and given the levels of stream restrictions, and now this is, Mr. Kuklinski makes reference to this, but DEP puts restrictions on different stream areas as to whatever aquatic life or circumstances for those streams are, so that these streams are not disturbed at the time where it's imperative for their health. And we have others that I believe either Mr. Kuklinski or Mr. Amelie had referenced that will come open today. They are available today, and there are quite a few that are available today. So that being the restrictions were up until yesterday, so now they're open. And we're not seeing anything there either. Bridge 119, as an example, has no relocations for any sort of utilities. There's no utilities near it. This would be an easy bridge to get started on. And Have we gotten a response in regard to that from our conversation last week?
Well, 119, that's the one where they're waiting for the permit from DEP. That's.
Oh, we don't have the permit for that.
That's correct.
How many bridges do we not have the permits for?
We don't have the permits for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. Yeah, DEP has an 86 business day review timeline is what they have.
And that's typical with DEP?
That's
Not
typical.
something new that they started
Yeah,
this year?
That's correct. That's typical.
So can I ask a point of clarification? So when
Sure.
you say that those 5 permits are they missing for the bridges that are being considered for this year? Or are we still looking at bridges from last year? Because that's where, again, I get a little confused.
This year?
Okay, so everything from last year is done then?
No.
Well,
Okay.
As I've been talking to bridges that were being constructed in 2019, that's all the ones that I've been talking about. There were some that they were trying to do in 2018 but got pushed to 2019.
Again, clarification, so the 2018 bridges that are here, how many of these are open and done? The 3, you said, or
Yeah,
no?
so 63, 184, 143 were the carryovers from 2018.
Say them again, 63.
63, 184, 143. And 184 has a further stream restriction as well, too.
But then you have here 66, 189, 191, 202, 205, and 227. They are all completed or no?
They're substantially complete. Some are final accepted, some are not final accepted. They're open to traffic.
Okay, and I guess the substantially complete, does that mean
Means open
the
to traffic
timeline
and
starts or no, not till it's final completion?
Not till final acceptance, correct. The maintenance time period.
Okay, thanks. So then this year, the bridges we expect to get done are what numbers?
54, 76, 119, 138, 188, 207, 215, and 224.
And then the carryovers.
And the carriers, correct.
And so I guess my last dumb question is, but I don't think it's dumb, how do we determine the milestone payment and like the phase of completion? Because we have another milestone coming up in about end of 2-month period. So
As of right
what's
now,
reasonable, I guess, to expect?
We know they're proposing a change to the milestone structure. That's one of the things they've told us. I don't know what that change is going to be yet, but they're proposing a change.
I'm anticipating to hear from their council next week. I think specifically discuss that. It's going to make a proposal for modification on changing the schedule, possibly, and the amounts of the milestone payments.
So do you think that proposal will change this list of
It could.
bridges?
It could.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
think
could.
it,
I don't know, but it could, yeah.
you don't know?
And do you think that the modifications that you're proposing would be to the benefit of all? Like, it would make this start to move a little smoother and get it done to the satisfaction of everyone?
Right.
With the exception of Mother Nature, who could always throw a wrench into the works.
I would assume so.
Okay.
Assume, yeah.
Because we can't control her.
But compared to last year, we are very fortunate this year. Last year, we had Winter Storm Riley, which, although it doesn't affect bridges, it affected the utility company's ability to react to our bridges holding us up
Right.
considerably. We've had a particularly mild year, and we just, to that extent, in a number of these bridges that we've addressed, it's a matter of not having a DEP permit, which is something that could have happened had they been applied for early enough for us to have them now.
Mm-hmm.
There was no easement needed for that work. There was no utility relocation that was needed for that work. It just needed to be filed in a timely fashion so that the permits would have been acquired by April 1st, the end of the major stream restrictions.
And can I ask another question about that? You know all these bridges are on the plan, correct? Do you have to wait till the year you're doing it to file the DEP request, or could it
Yeah.
all have been
No.
filed in advance?
You can file anytime you want.
And as I had asked Greg, this is nothing new. DEP has always taken 84 days, or at least, a portion of that to review these.
Just for myself, when, the first bridge in 2017, when did that start? I think, what month?
Say, thinking back, August, September-ish.
Okay. So
It
into
was
summer.
wrapped up by the end of the year.
All right, so we started this third quarter of 2017.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, most of our stream restrictions come back into place October 1. So this work has to be wrapped up by that point. I don't know that we have anything that is open after October 1 this year. No, yeah, they're all October 1.
Yeah.
So when we look at this in terms of when do we need to be done by, for this year's bridges, it is October 1, and the schedule gets more compressed as these bridges go further out, and without a lot of the precast being done in advance, we're losing 2 months before we can start the next bridge.
So is it basically April through October, or through the beginning of October?
For
that
the
we have
most
time
part,
to
there
do
are several, there are not several, there are a few that go until June.
it? Oh, okay, before you can do any work.
Right.
Yeah, sometimes there's a really small window where you can actually be in the stream.
Yeah,
So one of the
Okay.
tricks is you put a piece of concrete barrier up, and you work behind the concrete barrier, and then when the stream
Okay.
restriction's over, you just remove the barrier. That's one of the tricks that.
As an example, Bridge
Okay.
207 is closed again now. It was open from January 1st until the end of February, and then for March until the second week of June, that will be stream restricted again.
Okay.
But that's just specific to the work that has to be done there. There's other work that could be continued, as we discussed last year, right? Like paving and all that other stuff, that it's not stream-specific and keep going on. Whenever,
For
right?
some of the punch list items, correct. For some of the other items, no. I mean, the first thing you got to do is remove the old bridge and replace the new one, so you're working in the stream. So that'll be that's the first thing that you do. So the paving's once you do the paving, you're pretty much ready to open the bridge.
Yeah, and we don't want to forestall that work. We want to have the bridges open as quickly as we can for the communities. All right, that's all I have.
Anything else for Greg?
Thank you for your
Thank you.
patience.
Yep, thanks.
Next item of old business is the PA Ethics Statement of Financial Interest. If you haven't already filled that out, it's included in your packet. Please get it to Sarah. Okay, by May 1st.
Or before the next meeting.
Executive session, we don't need to go into executive session. We don't see a reason for that, so not needed. New business. We already went through the draft audit. We have a draft budget from that Ron's been working on. You just want to review that, Ron?
Sure. You have a copy in front of you, and again, we had a good session with the fiscal management with Duran and the staff to try to put this together. You'll see on the general fund budget on the beginning, what we try to do is look at historical numbers back to 2014 through, and really try to look at averages and break out the revenues and expenditures, and then you'll see the drafted 2019 budget to your far right. Now, there's a couple items here we've still got to complete through. One of them is the budgetary fund balance. You'll see on the top there under revenues. I believe that amount should be $1,280,000 and change, which you saw in the draft of the audit we talked about earlier. The other thing under the expenditures, you'll see we averaged out numbers that we felt are pretty realistic based on historical data and information we know for the 2019 year. We are going to want to add a net operating reserve account number under the expenditures, and I know maybe that's something we could have a discussion point on. My personal recommendation is when we look at some historical averages that we should put a a reserve of 3 years maybe, just so we have funds that we know we could operate 3 years in anticipation if we don't get some of the revenues year to year like we've had in the past. And that would be roughly around $500,000. So if our fund balance now is $1,280,000 in the general fund, I'm recommending we think about maybe a 3-year, but we could have some more discussion on that. But I like to see at least an operating reserve fund that we know will have those monies there to cover us for 3 years. The other thing we should really add in is maybe as the year goes through, you'll see the future grants and future loans items we left open at this point, and that may be something we discuss about. Do we target based on what we project we could be giving out in a given year? And as we've been talking through earlier too, we really should, as the year goes on, I want to try to work with maybe coming up with a procedure on how we would go about having a consistent implementation for how people apply for loans or if we consider grants, and we have time to do that right through the year. I'm not sure, Mark, we could throw some numbers in there, even though maybe I'm not sure that's critical for the first year of the budget. I think it's more important to put in that net operating reserve account. And then on the second page, if you flip over, it's the same outline for our capital project, P3, and you'll just see the historical data there and how it's pretty much always been a break even each year, and based on the numbers, what we project it to be for the new year. I think it's great discipline that we're going to be implementing this for the GPA, and I feel real good that these are pretty good numbers. We've had a great meeting, and I would like to at least open it for any other discussion at this point.
John, are we required by law to adopt a budget, or is it just kind of informational for the Fund Authority?
I don't know that we're required by law, but certainly our bylaws indicate that we're to adopt a budget.
Okay.
In the past, the GPA has not had an annual budget. That's long sort of been a recommendation from the auditor. But I think according to, I think it's in our financial statements, according to the Municipal Authorities Act, we are not required to have a budget.
Still a good guideline to have, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Would it be a problem if we adopted a budget? Because given the nature of some of the stuff that we do here, we have good years, we have, if we miss a target of wherever it is that something that's going to affect us in our audit opinion report?
That would be a good question for the auditor, and I'm happy to follow up with her on that. I think, the thing to keep in mind, if you separate out the P3 stuff, the primary revenue source for the General Purpose Authority is when we float bonds.
Right.
That's where we get our revenue to be able to make grants and to pay our operating expenses. In the course of going out and confirming the conduit debt balances, I kind of touched base with everybody to find out if they were going to be doing any financings this year. Doesn't look like it. So I think, the nature of our business, that we're going to have some years where we issue no conduit debt and really receive no income outside of P3, which is just a pass-through, and the minimal interest income that we receive from some of the loans that we've done. So, I do think it makes sense, depending on, we're going to be subject to the economy and all that, we keep an operating reserve of a couple of years, 2, 3, to have that. But, there are certain things that you're just we're not going to be able to control or know. So.
That's a good question too, Charles. My guess is that she'll be fine if we just adopt it for internal purpose use only, and it shouldn't have an impact on the audit, but we should follow up and ask their opinion on that. That's,
I don't want to be Charlie Brown in a football.
right.
All right, Ron, so this is still a work in progress. All right, I appreciate the effort. Any questions on that, just for... Okay. All right. Next item, resolution regarding receipt from the hospital authority. You want to review that for us, Mark, please?
Last year, the Northampton County Council decided to terminate or abolish the Northampton County higher ed and hospital authorities, two different authorities. And those were essentially the precursor to the general purpose authority. And so the hospital authority would issue all the conduit debt financing for all the hospitals, and the higher ed authority would issue all the conduit debt for the universities and colleges. And when they formed the general purpose authority, the idea was that that authority would replace those two authorities, and those debt financings would go through the general purpose authority. When they closed the hospital authority, there was a balance of $285,000 in their account, and so that money is coming into the general purpose authority's accounts as the successor agency. That was revenues that they collected from bond financings for the hospital authority. So this is just the formality of accepting those funds.
Mark, is that earmarked for any specific purpose since it came from the hospital authority? So it would just come into the fund as general
It would
funds?
be general purpose authority funds.
Thanks.
So those assets, were those GPA assets before? Because they used to be on, I thought they were on our balance sheet.
They were, so the way the GPA was set up, its board matched the hospital authority's board and the higher ed authority's board. And
Yes.
the point was sort of, they needed to keep the authorities open because they had some debt issuances out there, so they needed those to get paid off before they could close them. And so the thought was you would keep the board composition the same, and we would advertise for a general purpose authority board meeting, and then you could hold a hospital authority board meeting immediately following if needed. So we tracked them, but they were not general purpose authority assets. They were hospital authority assets because it was a separate entity.
But they used to be listed under the balance sheet for the GPA.
Correct, and that was definitely incorrect. That they shouldn't have been on the GPA's balance sheet.
Got it. Because that's not reflected on the ledger report we get now, the hospital authority assets, right? The 285?
It would have shown up, I believe, in this month's report.
It was for a while, and then I guess when we disbanded it, did it get removed? I'm not sure. I just remember that the council had to.
Yeah,
It used to be listed in GPA assets last year. So I kind of get this, I understand that. I know there's I'm not going to say I understand the separation, but I know there's separation.
It wasn't right. It wasn't being
Okay, so there's
displayed right
separation.
in your.
On the balance sheet.
Correct.
prior.
Correct.
All right.
This had been a known condition that previous county councils, for almost ever, it seems, certainly when I served, complained about or discussed the higher ed and the hospital authorities as zombie authorities because they weren't conducting any business. They weren't doing anything. They were just kind of there. And this money had sat long enough that it was almost on its way. No one had actually touched or come close to this money in long enough period of time that it was going to be sent to the state for just not being used.
Unclaimed. So we
Eschewed, yeah, eschewed. So, that being the case, I think certainly the county council had made a point and again, one of those advantages of of having an executive who was on county council very easily agreed, and I think it was just time for these two authorities to go away. This was discussed last year by the GPA, and at that time, the members had believed that it still allowed them an opportunity to go out for additional financing if such a need was out there. And the previous solicitor had suggested keeping it alive still further, but we have a new solicitor now, so that the need for that, or the thinking there is a lot clearer than it's been, I think, in 15, 20 years.
So he's a zombie slayer, huh?
He is.
I think that's kind of an insult to zombies.
I'm sorry. I'll make amends.
So this resolution just formally acknowledges that the 285 is coming
Right,
on to
and
the
then, so
GPA.
we're gonna
funds.
Do we
Acknowledge-
need to make a motion, or what do we have
I
to
don't-
do?
So this resolution is from the county. We don't need to read it. The secretary doesn't need to read it, right?
No, well, you're adopting this resolution,
All right.
accepting, you're accepting these funds.
I'm assuming there's no problems in accepting 285,000.
I would really hope not.
All right.
So we take a vote to accept?
Yes, you would need to make a motion to
Oh, yeah,
accept the.
right.
So I make a
Resolution.
motion to accept this resolution as written to restore the $285,098.70 fund balance to the GPA fund.
All right. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Frank. Any questions on that? So my question is, when would this take place? Is there a date? I'm sorry, is there a date on there?
It's.
Well,
it's
we're
effective.
adopting it
Vote.
today.
You're
but-
adopting it, it's effective.
And it'll be reflected in next month's
The
treasurer's
money,
report.
yes.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Just one comment. I was
Sure.
happy that Lori wanted the $98.70 as well.
That's all right.
Mark was okay with just 285,000. Lori went down to the penny. She
I
wanted it
know,
all.
I have to be
She
transparent.
wanted it all.
Appreciate that.
All right. Seeing no other questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. Motion carries. So, thank you, Mark. 7.4, there's a right to know request.
Yes, we received a right-to-know request on March 13 for basically all Norris McLaughlin invoices going back to January 2013 to present. Working with Solicitor Freund, we responded to that request. We just wanted to make you aware of it.
Any questions on that? There's no action needed, it's just informational. Any questions? Okay, seeing none. Insurance RFP. I know we talked about that last meeting.
Yeah, I think we'll have an update for you next month. I was hoping to have something, but was away on vacation last week. And
Nice.
We're going to meet afterwards and discuss finalizing this. But, my review of the present policies suggests that our coverage period from almost all the insurances go to the end of the year. That's what it seems.
correct, they do, but at the direction of the board, we wanted to put it out earlier. We may make a switch beforehand. Just kind of depends.
But I mean, you know, our coverage period goes to January 2020, so we're not going to use any insurance.
Right, it's understood, it's just to,
But also, and we'll discuss this later. My impression so far, Mark, is that I think we're overinsured in some areas and underinsured in some areas, and we can discuss that.
Okay.
Are we actually buying insurance, or are we self-funded for this?
So this is the primary concern of this. We have like what is it, like $4,000 directors and officers insurance policy that covers the board, and that had basically been the extent of our insurance previous to the P3. Once we started doing the P3, now we own these bridges, and, you know, somebody could slip and fall, and we get sued. So we had taken on a much larger liability risk. The previous board, through the previous solicitor, entered into the current insurance that we have now. I think we pay in the neighborhood of $112,000 a year. And that's really the focus of what we want to look at and make sure that we have the proper coverages, because nobody was really involved in selecting that.
Got
But
it.
at Dan's point, though, we're buying insurance, we're not self-funded.
Right, that was my question.
That's, got it.
And then the county reimburses us
for the P3
that-
bridge
for the
insurance.
P3.
Which,
Any-
just so you know, when we look at this P3 as it's a ever-blooming cost that no one really looks at, this effectively is another $1 million worth of cost to the bridge that really came up out of nowhere last year. No one really knew that this was a thing. This hadn't gone out as we're doing now, and to that extent, the county was also insuring those bridges under their old insurance. So even though they had conveyed them off, the previous administration had never taken them out of our insurance. So these were at one point, perhaps the best insured bridges in the county or in the country. But now the county has taken action to no longer do that, and we should make sure that we have what we need appropriate that would be put out by RFP rather than just selecting someone to do this, as we have now.
And will it be, this may be in the category of dumb questions, but will it ultimately be, do the bridges live in the GPA for perpetuity and the obligation for liability extends to this authority?
Part of the P3 contract or P3 idea was the county conveyed the bridges to the GPA so that they could do this project. And after 10 years of maintenance, which is part of why we're so concerned, both us and the county, that this maintenance window stays open without us being able to receive these bridges or accept these bridges. Once that 10 years start, then 10 years from that point will be, so in several cases here now, we're going to be the better part of paying insurance on some of these bridges for 12 years.
Okay, and then where do they go?
The GPA will return them to the county.
Okay, thank you.
So
Although I
just-
think the county sold them to us for $1, and since they're going to be so much better when we get them back, I think we hold out for $5 a bridge.
So Charles, just so I want to understand this, though, we need to convey the bridges back as a group to the county? Not, like, two are complete now.
That is an element for which I'm not perfectly sure, but we're going to have a staggered cost that's going to continue out much longer
Sure.
than just simply 10 years. So, at the end of this, it's going to be more than $1 million of insurance that the county will reimburse us for
I
during
got
this period.
for the bridges, right. The D&O insurance, is there two different insurances for D&O, for the P3 and our authority, or is it just lumped? And also, is there a need for that?
We should have DNO
Yeah, we should have
Well, we do have D&O. We do have D&O, right? But is that,
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
the D&O insurance, Mark's saying it's $4,000. Is that just for the authority itself, or does that also include the P3 that we've assumed?
I think that's the authority, the actions that the authority takes for whatever it's
All right.
authorized to take actions for.
Any
So it would
business
include
that
the
we
P3.
conduct?
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
All right. All right. Any other questions on the insurance? All right. You have a staff report, Mark? No. All right. Next meeting will be Tuesday, May 7th, in this chamber at 8:15 a.m. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Ron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. See everybody in May.